Bien, señoras y señores, muy buenos días y continuamos aquí en Café con Leche. Como habíamos hablado temprano en el día de hoy, tenemos en esta mañana a la honorable alcaldesa de la ciudad de Lancaster, Danene Sorace, en línea telefónica, y también está con nosotros CEO de nuestra organización, señor Carlos Graupera. Buenos días, Carlos.
Buenos días, Héctor. Buenos días a todos nuestros fieles oyentes.
Good morning, Danene. How are you, Mayor?
Buenos días.
Muy buenos días.
Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning. Good morning, Carlos.
Well, we're very happy to have you here today. This is an interesting place that we're in, and your administration, to say the least. And we just wanted to catch up on where you've been and the road you've been traveling in the city since you became mayor. And we just want to start out by asking if what is new with you, and do you have any news for us?
I do. I have news, and that news is that I am running for mayor for a second 4-year term.
That is wonderful.
And so there it is.
That is wonderful news. We were assuming that you would do that, even though you had a rough year, rough couple of years coming in. A lot of things happening in the city, and of course the pandemic. We're just happy that you came here to Radio Centro to talk to us about it. How is the COVID situation affecting your campaign, and when do you think things will gradually get back to normal?
Well, first of all, I want to thank WLCH and Radio Centro and your team, Carlos, for having me on this morning to make an announcement like this. And COVID is really going to change the way our campaign starts. Of course, hoping that as the months go on, I will have the opportunity to do more face-to-face, in-person events. But to start out, it will be largely online. And I look forward to the new year and continuing to meet with folks via Zoom and telephone, and, and as the weather gets warmer, more outside events. So the campaign is going to look different, but the priority on, listening to residents, talking about the issues that are priority for our residents and our business owners is going to continue.
Well, we have gone through an election, a national election, that has surprised so many people, and the fact that it took place. A lot of participation, so we know it can happen anywhere. There's an election in America, so we expect the same thing in Lancaster.
Yes, and I hope that as many people turn out to vote in Lancaster.
Absolutely, and I think that in our community, especially, there are issues that we have to just stand up and be counted on. I remember when you were campaigning for your first term, that you were talking about the fact that Lancaster had to turn its attention to neighborhoods and the health of our neighborhoods, and you started, and that was a central point of your campaign. Could you talk to us, could you reflect after 4 years almost on the job? Where are you at with the priority of bringing back neighborhoods?
Yes, thank you, Carlos. I'm really appreciative that we have Milsey Carrasco as our Director of Neighborhood Engagement. And as you pointed out, neighborhoods were a central focus and continue to be a central focus. And with Milsey's leadership, we have embarked upon a number of initiatives to engage residents in the vitality of their neighborhoods as well as the city overall. And so we've had significantly more outreach into our neighborhoods, responsiveness from the city in terms of addressing issues. We've done, the Love Your Block program, which has provided mini grants for all kinds of things. We've amped up the level of engagement in our neighborhoods as we go about projects. And, if I'm successful in the next term, we really have developed and partnered with Elm Street and Saka and many others in the Southeast to advance work on Howard Avenue, to advance efforts and planning on the Duke Street corridor. We have a major effort that we're looking to implement on Beaver Street. And so these are all plans for the future, but have really been built on the work of the past 3 years.
Mayor, I have a curiosity. The website, soraceformayor.com, announced that you are fighting for every block. What does that mean?
Yeah, I think, Hector, fighting for every block is really about making sure that we have strong neighborhoods. And, that goes to individual houses as it relates to our lead remediation efforts. I think we have a long way to go to secure safe housing in the City of Lancaster. And I know, Saka has been a part of that effort for many, many years as it relates to housing and making sure that there are opportunities for first-time home buyers. In addition, we want to make sure that those houses are safe for people to live in, for children to grow and thrive, such that they can learn and accomplish all the things that they want in life. And that starts with eliminating lead. So fighting for every block begins with each individual apartment, house, and it means everything on that block, from the way that the streets are maintained to sidewalk, litter, all of it. And I know that work is unending because we have 110 miles of streets throughout the city. And so we have a lot of work ahead of us that will just be perpetual. But we can't forget what our neighbors need. And what fighting for every block means is that I'm in it with you, with all of the residents, and ready to be a partner in advancing the entirety of the city.
Mayor, I know that probably the city had to spend some money that probably doesn't have on hand on this COVID-19 effort. So how those affect the city finances?
Well, I think COVID really has affected the city, not so much in what we're additionally spending as it relates to COVID, although there have been some expenses. It's really about what we've lost. And it has really impacted businesses throughout the city as it relates to just not having as much opportunity to be open with the shutdowns in the spring, as well as ongoing mitigation efforts that have definitely affected our restaurants, especially those with who generate the majority of their business from in-person dining. Fortunately, I think a lot of our takeout restaurants have been able to navigate, but still, when people aren't working, they don't have money. They're not as they don't have as much income to go and spend to pick up dinner, and so these are all things that are really affecting our city. And I'm very concerned about the speed in which we will be able to recover from COVID as a community.
I know that you have read the same media reports that we have, and that is that COVID has affected the minority community, which is 60% of the city of Lancaster, in terms of the health disparity, but also the loss of income. A lot of the residents of the city work in tourism and the hospitality, and those industries are not coming back. There are concerns about people not being able to pay their rent, and evictions. I know that you and Milsey must be having conversations about what could happen to our city with or without the government support to help residents that are either going to be out on the street or in distress or hungry or unemployed along the way. You work with the business community, and I'm sure that there are some concerns like that. Could you let us in on your views about the social distress that the pandemic is going to have, has been having, and is going to have in our community?
Thank you, Carlos. Altogether, it makes me heartsick. I know that there have been lives lost in our community as a result of COVID, and there have been people who have gotten very, very sick. That has also resulted in loss of income and worse, a lot of, healthcare bills and so on. And as I think about this, I want to be clear how important it is that our federal government pass a second stimulus to aid those who remain unemployed through no fault of their own, to aid businesses who have suffered damaging setbacks, to aid cities like Lancaster who have lost significant revenues, who need to continue to pay the bills to make sure that we have all of the services that we rely on: police, fire, streets, water, sewer, all of it. And so that stimulus bill is being, debated right now in Washington, D.C., and it is absolutely essential that they hear from communities like Lancaster and understand the impacts of our residents, especially our residents of color. As you point out, 60% of our residents in the City of Lancaster are African American, Hispanic, Asian, and more. And we know that they are major contributors to our local economy, and they're suffering right now. And we need help. And those pleas for help thus far have not resulted in the kind of federal stimulus that we need to help see us through what I hope are the final months of this pandemic.
I think that it's fair to say that when you started out in your very early months, the issue of racial equity and social justice hit you within the first few weeks. There was an incident with the police early on, and there's been at least a couple more, some of them tragic. I think people in Lancaster were surprised that a quiet community like this could erupt after the tragic incident that we had with an unfortunate incident with a young man who lost his life, and he had some mental issues that were unaddressed. You took some heat on that. Criticism from all quarters. How did you process that whole situation, and what are you doing to come out of that situation?
Well, I think with any crisis like that, there's a lot of reflection that happens about what happened, what were the contributing factors that led to that, to the incident, to the response, and so on. And there's certainly places that I have influence in all of that, and then there are places where I don't. And sometimes, I'll tell you, Carlos, the serenity prayer has come into my life in a lot of ways, because there's a lot of things that I recognize, my limitations. And at the same time, I also seized the opportunities where I can effectuate change, and that is really coming to shape in the form of the changes at the police department with new leadership. We have the opportunity to get to know Chief Bay in this interim role. Also, while we continue to pursue a national search, and that to me is a huge gift to this community for us all to be able to weigh in about what we want in terms of the qualities and characteristics of a chief of police, as well as the priorities of the department. I am continuing to advocate for a crisis interventionist within the police bureau. We had that position, and that position no longer exists, and it was in partnership with the county behavioral health. And so we have a lot of work to do on a lot of different fronts as it relates to community police relationships. I think that for those folks who were surprised about the eruption following the death of George Floyd, they are clearly not paying attention to what is happening in America and what is happening in our community as it relates to the growing economic divide that exists in this community and many others, and are also wholly unaware of the vibrancy of our community of color here in Lancaster, which makes the city so special, which has been overlooked for such a long time, to the extent that it is a surprise to some people that 60% of our city is not white. And that is something that I will continue to talk about until the very last day I am the mayor in the city of Lancaster.
Obviously, Mayor, you need the Latino vote to win the election. What is the plan of your campaign to get the Latino vote?
Yes, for the Latino vote. I think that one of the things that I'm going to continue to do is to show up, Hector, and to do the work. This is so important to me. Every resident in the city of Lancaster understands the value of what services the city provides, even if they're unaware of them, because they just are happening. And so for me, as it relates to the Latino community, we are going to continue to make sure that all of the tools and resources of the city of Lancaster are available to the Latino community, and that is through our language access plan, which we are continuing to increase, making sure that all of our materials are available in Spanish and English, to make sure that every opportunity related to a business loan or other tools that the city has to help our community be successful are equally available to our residents who have blessed the city by making this place their home.
And Carlos and Mayor, I think that we all have seen that change on a lot of documents that are coming from the city of Lancaster, translated to Spanish and other languages.
And we have more work to do.
Absolutely. You know, we make the observation here that we really live in two Lancasters. There is the Lancaster that it's official and it's mainstream, and then there's this other Lancaster, and it lives in the poorer neighborhoods and in the minority community, and we get the sense that Lancaster is two communities striving to become one. And on some days we make very good progress, and sometimes we slip back. One of the issues that is of great concern to people is what happens as Lancaster gets more prosperous, and it's the issue of gentrification. And when you look at a lot of the neighborhoods, especially in the northern part of the city, those zones have become gentrified, and there is increasingly a concern about as Lancaster gets all fixed up and prosperous, are the people who lived here going to be able to stay here? I know that you can't market forces are at work, so you can't control that whole process. But what are your thoughts on the over-gentrification of our city and assurances that we can, to the greatest extent that we can make assurances, make sure that people get the benefits of home ownership and starting businesses and staying in the community that they love?
Well, thanks, Carlos, because that remains just an ongoing concern, and we're seeing the effects of a limited housing supply really, really pushing the rents in the city of Lancaster and home purchase prices up to levels that are just mind-boggling to me when I am seeing what some of the housing is being listed and sold for. As it relates to the city, we are going to continue as it relates to our neighborhoods, and in particular our neighborhoods that are poor, to assist in the using different tools that we have, like the land bank, and really ramping them up to purchase and make available homes to city residents as a priority first. We know that if you're paying $1,000 or more in a rent, that you can afford to buy a home, maybe even in your same neighborhood, which is what we want to see happen. And we know that wealth building is particularly important as it relates to really transformational generations in terms of poverty over time. And so that is a mutual goal that we have, Carlos, as we continue to work together to address housing and the criticality of housing and affordability, as well as home ownership, to stem the tide of gentrification in our city.
Mayor, thank you for letting us talk to you this morning, have this serious and honest conversation. Carlos, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for coming to speak to us today, and please know that your microphone here at Radio Centro, that's your microphone.
Thank you so much, Carlos. And thank you, Hector. And to all of the listeners, please stay safe today. We are going to get some snow later. And if you live on a snow emergency route, please, please, please move your car. Help your neighbors move your car. I don't want to see any cars towed. I want to see everybody safe through this snowstorm, and especially through this pandemic. So please do all that you can to protect your health and your community's health.
Mayor, can you do the closing in Spanish?
What would you like me to say, Hector?
Buenos días, muchas gracias.
Buenos días, muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Hasta luego.
Thank you.
Hasta luego, gracias.
Hasta luego.
Muchas gracias a la alcaldesa honorable Danene Sorace. Carlos, interesante la respuesta a las preguntas que le hemos formulado a la alcaldesa en el día de hoy. Acaba de anunciar, para aquellos que recién sintonizan, que estará corriendo nuevamente para un segundo término como alcaldesa de la ciudad de Lancaster. Esta promesa no las hizo de que nos iba a dar a nosotros primero la noticia por aquí, por Radio Centro FM. Entre lo que se le preguntó, si ella entiende que el voto latino ella lo necesita para ganar esta elección. Ella está muy consciente de esto. Preguntas tuyas sobre lo que es la centrificación de la ciudad. La alcaldesa hasta cierto punto tiene cierto compromiso con la gente de nuestra ciudad y con los menos afortunados, que desafortunadamente son las personas que viven en la parte sureste de nuestra ciudad y demás. Carlos.
Y Héctor, hay que tener en mente que ella vino aquí primero.
Sí, señor.
Y hemos llegado a un punto que nosotros como comunidad tenemos que reflexionar. Nosotros no somos ya un electorado que se viene a último momento a fomentar. y a buscar apoyo. Yo me acuerdo que cuando yo era, cuando era mucho más joven, en todas las campañas políticas venían la semana antes de la elección a buscar el apoyo hispano.
Después no los veías.
Y después cuando la comunidad no respondía, nos echaban la culpa, pero ¿quién responde cuando te vienen a considerar a último momento? Aquí tú tienes un ejemplo de la alcaldesa, antes de nada, trató de hablar con la comunidad, y nosotros tenemos que reflexionar, no importa para cuál partido usted vote o por qué candidato. El punto aquí, que es realidad en estos días, que la comunidad hispana, el poder político de la comunidad hispana está. Siempre ha estado, pero nosotros no lo hemos tomado en serio como comunidad. Pero ahora, cuando los líderes políticos nos toman en serio, nosotros tenemos que tomarnos en serio también. Todo el mundo a registrarse, todo el mundo a participar.
Carlos, tú has podido ser parte de, ¿verdad? Me imagino, no voy a decir de cuántas elecciones porque no sé de cuántas elecciones, pero has visto pasar y has estado en conversaciones y trabajando con varios alcaldes desde que se conoce Carlos Graupera aquí en Saca. Ese respeto que sentimos, que puedo decirlo, que sentimos por parte de los pasados alcaldes y alcaldesas, porque tenemos una alcaldesa, ¿se ha ganado a fuerza o ha sido porque ellos entienden que nuestra comunidad tiene un valor?
Bueno, el respeto que no se nos dio como comunidad al principio de nuestra estancia aquí en Lancaster, no se nos dio importancia ninguna.
¿Estamos hablando de qué años?
Estamos hablando, pero ahora uno puede decir que la comunidad se ha ganado el respeto. Con la fuerza laboral que tenemos, la conciencia social que hemos tenido, cada individuo que ha comprado su casa, que ha mandado a sus hijos a educarse en las universidades, todo el mundo que ha dado buen esfuerzo en el trabajo, todas esas personas son parte de la dignidad colectiva de nuestra comunidad. Y si hoy en día los líderes políticos nos respetan, es porque nosotros a punto individual hemos hecho algo para ganarnos esa dignidad y ese respeto.
Ese gran respeto que sentimos tienen por nosotros. Sarita se comunica y felicita a la alcaldesa y le recuerda que, por favor, no se olvide que los pequeños negocios no solamente están en downtown, sino que están alrededor de la ciudad.
Claro que sí.
Muy importante, Sarita, gracias por compartir con nosotros en la mañana de hoy. Nosotros aquí en Café con Leche o en Saca no endosamos a ningún candidato. Todos los candidatos, según vayan anunciando su aspiración a la alcaldía de la ciudad de Lancaster o a otros puestos, tendrán la oportunidad de ser entrevistados aquí en nuestro programa. Así que nosotros de ninguna manera endosamos a ningún candidato ni le decimos a usted por qué candidato usted tiene que votar. Carlos, muchísimas gracias.
Es un placer.
Para mí es un placer y gracias por ser la persona intermediaria aquí para lograr que la alcaldesa, que ya en varios minutos estará haciendo el anuncio a otros medios de comunicación, escogió a Café con Leche y a Radio Centro FM como el primer medio de comunicación y el primer programa en el cual ella anunciase su candidatura por la alcaldía de la ciudad de Lancaster por otro término. Gracias, Carlos.
Gracias a ti, Héctor, y que pasen buenos días.
Muy buen día para ti. Señoras y señores, vamos a una pausa muy breve y regresamos con mucho más aquí en la mañana de hoy con información sobre la tormenta invernal que en varios minutos, diríamos, estaría ya afectando nuestra área. Venimos con anuncios importantes para los amigos de las ciudades de Lancaster y York, Pensilvania, aquí en Café con Leche.